Started. First and foremost, I want to just start off by introducing myself. My name is Will Arnu. I'm a third-year candidate in the EDD and Higher Ed program at the University of Pennsylvania. And Mike, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Michael Walker. I'm Director of Black Student Achievement for Minneapolis Public Schools. Yeah, I'll just share with that. I'll just start with that.
All right, Trey.
What's up, everybody? My name is Tre Smith. I'm a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Fantastic. So, I just want to pop up the conversation of what we're currently going through. What's the last couple of weeks been like for you all? And can you just talk about, some of the emotions you've been going through, some of the thoughts that have been going through your head, and what actions are we taking to bring more attention to the plight of Black people within the country? So, Trey.
With that, just to answer your first question, man, the past couple of weeks have been rough. It began as a shock, right? Because here we go again. Then it turned into emotional stress, a struggle within myself, trying to figure out why. But then it became heavy. It became very heavy on my heart as to what is going on. Because, like you said previously, is that when I see George Floyd, I see myself. And I think the biggest struggle is because the biggest struggle I have is being Black and also being in law enforcement. It takes a toll because you always try to rationalize and see both sides. But what I found is that, and I share with a few other people, is that I'm Black first. And so I'm always affected by what happens to my people before I'm affected by what happens with my job. Because I have a wife, I have a son on the way who's going to be a brown boy. And it's going to be very difficult to navigate having to tell him, you're not accepted the way you should be. The world is not the way that it should be. People that don't look like you are not going to necessarily approve of you. And it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the type of person you are, your character, or that you did anything wrong with them. It will be simply because of your skin. And I think that is the issue that is difficult and that I've been going through in the last few weeks. So what I was saying, what we can do to change it, I'm not necessarily sure at this point. You try to run through your head of, or change of what we can do politically. But honestly, my first thought is that is the very reason that I joined law enforcement, is to change so that that our Black people are represented, that others that don't look like us, that our white counterparts can see us and say, like, okay, this is what they feel, this is what they think. And so I think it takes an insurgence of our people in different areas of career fields to take that on, to change it so that they can see us other than what they view us as now, which you said before is like, just thugs, looters, or rioters, or emotionally unstable, whatever they think. So.
Fantastic. And Mike, do you want to go ahead and pick that up?
Yeah, no doubt I can pick it up. So just kind of how I've been feeling over the last couple of weeks, obviously, like many of us, just trying to deal with the pain, the issue that we saw on that video for 10 minutes. Again, like my brother Trey said, that could have been me, that could have been my brother, that could have been my nephew, could have been my uncle, my father, right? It could have been many other Black men that I know in my life that could have been in that same position that Floyd was in, which is definitely an unfortunate situation. And it got me feeling some type of way, right? It's not the first. I hope it's the last. But, history has showed us that it won't be the last, which is unfortunate. But we just got to figure out how can we get out of that situation. And, Trey kind of hit on some pointers that I would hit on as well, of saying that we got to talk about the bias that has been placed on many people, right? So there's a bias against Black folks that has been perpetuated since the beginning of this nation. And so that plays out in every industry or every arena that you that you think about. So as we're talking about right now, most folks are focusing on the police brutality issue. That's one issue. But we also got disparities in healthcare. We also got disparities in academics and educational outcomes. We got disparities in wealth. We got disparities in home ownership, right? So all these disparities are negatively impacted black folks, right? So it's not just one thing, which tells us, which is obvious, that it's systemic, right? It's the way that this nation was set up and designed for us to not be able to get our just due. And so trying to do that is going to be a battle. It's going to be a fight. Every opportunity that's out there, we got to go at it, full force and trying to make sure we make change. To me, it's not necessarily about changing laws and policies. And I know people get caught up. We got to change the laws and we got to change the policy. And I get that. Don't get me wrong. I get that. I think those are important things to do. But if we don't change the mindsets of the people who are in the positions to interpret those policies, interpret those laws, right, we're going to be in the same boat, because anti-blackness is not necessarily embedded in the law. It's embedded in the people who are interpreting the laws, right? So how do we change the mindsets and beliefs around the people who are in those positions? And as my role as an educator, so this is going into the second question of what do I think we can do differently, is that my role, as I'm saying, is that how do I prepare the next generation to be in the positions to make decisions, but have a stance, a mind frame of being black, of pro-blackness, right? And again, I want to make sure that we understand that pro-blackness does not mean I'm anti something else. It just means I want to make sure that my blackness is recognized, that it's receiving the benefit of the doubt like every other group is getting in this society. And so how do we make sure, at least that's my role in education, how do I make sure I'm preparing the next generation to sit in those seats to make those decisions that's going to benefit black folks in a positive way? So I hope that answered your questions.
So Officer Boyd, we want to bring you in. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, fantastic. So do you just want to take a quick second to introduce yourself? And then the first question is, what are you currently feeling during this time? What emotions are going through your mind? And what efforts can we work toward, like, creating an impact and change?
How y'all brothers doing? I'm Lieutenant Boyd. Some of y'all know me. I'm with UNC Hospitals Police in Chapel Hill. I did 15 years in North Carolina Central University as a lieutenant. So, for me, man, this is like the third platform I didn't talked on, and because it hurts. Like something Tre said, it's hurting when you want to be part of the protest, but you have to do your job. I mean, for me, I'm looking at what happened to Brother Floyd was something that a real, true, the hard law enforcement officer would not do. I mean, like, some people are called to this job and some people just pick it. So I think those who is called to this job, I mean, white, black, whoever, they would, what happened to him was not what the police department is about, especially for me. In North Carolina Central University, sometimes, if I went overboard, I had that partner that what we call tap out. Tap me out. Hey, boy, you're doing too much, or I've been that officer. Hey, bro, okay, that's good. He good. Let him go. I mean, so, when I saw it, I was like, why is his knee on his neck? What training is that? And it hurt my heart because before I'm a police officer, I'm a father. I have 3 children. I have 2 African-American boys and a daughter. So it's like, damn, that could be my son. That could be me, because I wasn't always the police. I had braids. I had baby dreads in college. I wore hoodies. I still do. I got both of my ears pierced. I look totally different outside my uniform. So for some people to say that, all right, well, maybe this it's no justification for that. And I think training and the person's heart. I mean, it was sickening to me, because this is a profession I love. I got 16 plus years in it. I don't know any other job. Trey can contest. I remember talking to him, and he was like, his goals towards being in law enforcement. I looked at you, Trey, and I was like, okay, that's a brother who wants this, because he was like, you know, I'm taking this internship. It's going, we was in Kent Williams' office. And you was like, it's going to may intervene with football, but this is something I want to do. That's the type of people we need in law enforcement, who, you know, because they want to be there. They want the passion to help folks, not just those who collect the paycheck, because for one, you're not invested in your job, meaning that you don't care. It's another call. You don't care. You ain't trying to, you don't care. You don't have empathy. So.
Thank you for that. You actually hit on a really good point that I want to address. Like, I remember on Saturday specifically watching the news and looking at all the different major cities in the country, and I was like, yo, America's on fire. America is literally on fire. And so my next question, and Trey, I want to pose this. Actually, I want to pose this to all three of you. One commonality that all three of you have are you're all parents. And so in this time, in this situation, what conversations are you having with your children about, like, because we're currently living through history, right? Like, you know, everybody said 2020 was going to be my year, 2020 was going to be popping. And then, like, I was just having a conversation with my fiance, and I'm like, damn, it seems like Kobe died 5 years ago. As many things has happened throughout this year. And so I really just want to pose that question. And Mike, I want to start off with you.
Yeah, that's a deep question you asked right there, right? So I'll just start off by saying, so actually I'm in Minneapolis, right? So I live in Minneapolis, and I'm here where it all went down at. And so, you know, I've been out to the site a couple of times where it occurred at, because as Will knows, that's the neighborhood that his high school is, and the high school that I worked at, and also high school that I graduated from. So we frequent that area. I've been to that store. I can't even count how many times I've been to that store and up and down that block on 38th in Chicago. So I went over there, you know, to pay my respects individually. And, you know, because I needed to get it out as a black man to go over there by myself. And then probably about 2 or 3 days ago, I brought my family, because I have 4 children, 3 girls and 1 son. And it was important for me and my son, who's only 7 years old, to be over there and have a conversation about what's going on and what took place. And the crazy part about that is he's 7 years old, and I got to have that damn conversation with him already about how the world may see him, right? Not how I see him, but how the world may see him. The other issue about that is that I'm also trying to balance the conversation about saying, hey, all police officers ain't bad, right? Because you don't want to put that thought into a young mind either, because that's not going to be healthy, right? So you're trying to have these conversations with a 7-year-old, right, who don't necessarily have all the brain capacity to be able to process what is actually happening. So trying to get it down to a level that is that he can understand is a little difficult for me, right? You know, I'm just being honest, you know, trying to make sure you say the right things and pose questions and give him the good insight. But really what I wanted him to understand is that not all officers are bad, right? Just like in any profession, you're gonna have some bad people that don't deserve to be in that profession. That happens. I do want him to understand that as a black man, your road and your life will be a little different. You gotta be very vigilant and watchful of the situations you're in and how you navigate the world. So I want to have that conversation with him. And we did. And obviously he has more questions. And as he gets older, we'll be able to have more intellectual conversations about that and more scenario-based conversations. Now with my older daughters who are in middle school, it was a totally different conversation because they have seen it and witnessed it in their schools with some of the black males that are in their schools and how teachers treat them, right? How SROs have talked to them, how they are disciplined, how they are excluded sometimes from the conversations or dialogue that are in classrooms, right? So they already are seeing this issue around how black young men are perceived and what happens. And so,
thank you for that. Lieutenant Boyd, you want to take that?
Well, just like, you know, Brother Walker here, my youngest 2 are 10. They're 9. They're twins. They're about to be 10 this year. I mean, I don't go into debt with them about, you know, certain issues, but I do tell them, and they do know, okay, Daddy's a police officer. Right now, people do not like police officers, and Daddy understands why. My 14-year-old, we have these conversations. My 14-year-old is 6'2", 165 pounds, 14 years old. Only thing on his mind is basketball. So, you know, that's all he, AAU, playing basketball, this and that. So he don't look at my wife and I have to explain to him different race relations in the United States of America. We make him watch documentaries. You know, hey, you like basketball? Well, let's see the story of Bill Russell. And, you know, one thing that he said, Daddy, how Bill Russell was winning everybody championships, but couldn't go down the street to one of the restaurants, and they was just cheering on TV, but they won't let him in the restaurant. And I'm like, son, you know, and I break it down to him. We watch. I showed him, you know, I said, son, this is not what a police officer does. And I tell him about having crime. I have to give him. I have to tell him about when you drive. I hate to say this, you can't have. I know you coming from practice, you want to pile all your teammates in the car. You son, you got to limit it. I mean, I'm being real. You know, I've been pulled plenty of times. I've been stopped as a police, and when I was in high school, it's different. You got to have that conversation. I always tell them this. I always tell people, and I say, if you do get pulled, tell them who your father is, and also don't have court on side of the road. Don't argue. Don't be that. Don't show out in front of your friends. Whatever. Don't have court side of the road. You come home safe, and we will figure out everything else later. And far as school, I think you touched on something, Brother Walker, about school. See, that's another thing. He goes to a private school where he goes for basketball. And I'm gonna call it is what it is. All the kids is over 6 foot. We know they're here for basketball. You know, we know. So I'm like, you don't go to a traditional high school, so you don't know about an SRO officer. You don't know about this and that. So he thinking like, hey, other students go on a field trip. What is it? Water rafting. You know, I'm like, nah, that ain't nah. But I'm like, nah, you know. So he thinking, you know, well, I can order Uber Eats. Will come to my school. No, son, it's different. So we have to really, you know, let him know that, okay, you're a good kid, you're a quiet kid, but people still see you as a threat. They won't judge you for the content of your character, like Dr. King was saying. They're gonna judge you for the color of your skin. So I mean, we have that talks and we watch documentaries. Black History Month in our house. Oh, my kids be like, Daddy, we gotta see Roots again. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Trey, you want to talk on that question?
Yeah, just very quickly, actually. I mean, I don't have kids, and then I admire, you know, your favorite 12, Officer Boyd, man. That's my guy, you know, and Michael, man, because they are having those conversations. A lot of people are afraid to do that, you know what I'm saying? So they're the fact that they're taking that step to answer the hard questions or to have the hard conversations, man, that's a beautiful thing. I admire both of you for that, because that's something I plan to do with my children. But I do remember as being a child, as I was getting older, and my older brother, who's a year and 2 months older than me, of my mom having that conversation about driving, about, you know, if somebody pull you over, you know, you listen, yes sir, no sir, you give them what they want, you know, even if they want to lock you up, take you to jail, you be quiet. You feel what I'm saying? Because the biggest thing is about coming home. You feel what I'm saying? And I'll never forget one time I got pulled over, and this is before I became a cop. I get pulled over way more now than I ever have, and that I am a cop. I think that's hilarious. Because I always get out, but it's hilarious. But anyways, I remember getting pulled over, and I was on the side of the road. It was dark. I pulled over, put my car on brake. I turned the lights on that shine right in the front, and I rolled all my windows down. And I had my hands on the steering wheel. As soon as the guy walked up, it was a white guy. He said, he was like, is anybody in your family? This is the first thing he said. Is anybody in your family a cop? I said, yes, sir. He was like, oh, because I was shocked that you turned the headlights on. I was like, I just wanted you to see my face. You feel what I'm saying? And these are things that I learned from my parents. You feel what I'm saying? Even though my parents are not cops, but I have family members that are cops. These are things that I learned from my family. And so that got me out of a ticket because of the respect that this man saw. He like, he good. You know what I'm saying? He like, not only is his family cop, but he understands that, he understood that I'm not, he doesn't want to get in trouble. Like, he's doing the right things. And so that is a big thing of just like Boyd and Walker have said, that doing the right thing, man, like doing the right thing during those traffic stops will get you home. And that's the biggest thing, is getting home.
We're living in a time where like being a cop is like being public enemy number one, right? Like, you have people calling for defunding of police officers. You got people calling for reform. And, you know, me personally, I'm stuck between that, because it's like, I know the history of policing and the history of all the negative things that police have done, but then I also know some really good cops. How do we better educate people on, you know, like, when you meet a police officer, what kind of conversations do you have? And if you are put in a situation where you are stopped like that, you know, what conversations do you have to mitigate that situation?
We got to start by what we're doing now. We got to have the open dialogue about these topics, and not just while the block is hot, not just while we have these protests and what's going on. We got to keep it going. It's what I was telling people when I talked to about Trayvon Martin, when I, you know, met, you know, Lawyer Crump and all of them. It's like we focus more on Trayvon and Joe and him. We got to focus on the law. We should continue to talk about the law. So now moving forward for what we got in America now, not just America. I got a cousin in the Army, and he was like, they in Italy wild. You know, they the world, this is a global thing now. So it's like, we got to continue these open dialects, and we got to put pressure. I mean, we have to keep talking about the laws. We got to keep talking about, I tell people all the time, if you have an officer that you think they dirty, complain, but follow up. You know, just keep following up and having these open dialects. We have to keep talking about the issues. We got to keep acting on the issues, not just while we're still in, you know, this condition now. After what the conversation.